Hey, this thing like, welcome to the Whoop Project. Did you hear that? It's pretty faint, pretty far away. This is our very first submission to the Whoop Project. So I cannot wait to get in, do a deep dive on this thing and verify whether or not it is some known species or possibly a human hoax, more than likely, or could it actually be a verified, authentic forest shot vocalization? If it is, I will plot it on a map and hopefully in time with more and more verified, authentic vocalizations. Who knows what we could learn from this species about do they travel? Where do they frequent? Do they migrate? Do they follow herd migrations? Anything we learn would be more than we've ever known. So enough talk. Let's dive in and see what we've got here. Here we go. Okay, so looking at the encounter report that Rob submitted, I'm not going to give you exact locations, but it happened in Heron, Montana, which I don't normally associate Montana with being a Bigfoot hotspot, but it's on a nice long reservoir here, just down from a nice big lake right there, and a mountain range right at the foothills of a mountain range. And if we go up over the mountain range a little bit, next stop is Canada. So yeah, this is as good a spot as any to have an encounter like this. Okay, this all happened in and around June 24th, back in 2021. It was 8 p.m. at night, clear skies, 85 degrees, just as the sun set. He said they were there, he and his family were camping, not a place they frequented. And I wished I would have asked, are you planning on going back? I suspect I know that answer would be no. Now here, in Rob's own words, here is what he said. We had heard multiple whoops from all over. Some were obviously from many miles away, some closer. On our last day, my sons started making whooping sounds back, which is when we heard the scream. A tree was also thrown from across the river. It scared my wife and kids bad enough they wouldn't stay out after dark. It only happened when I was not by the river. I was open carrying a .44 Magnum pistol, so I wonder if this tree flying out of the tree line like a javelin was to scare them. But they didn't do it while I was there because they know what a gun is. He goes on to say, while sleeping, something banged on our cabin twice, waking my kids and I, but not my wife. I was terrified that night and could not move. I then asked, was there any other odd activity before or after the vocalizations, like smells, feelings, pet reactions, knocking, things like that? And then he adds, tree thrown that same day, extreme fear at night. Rob says, I was frozen in terror and could not get up to close the sliding glass door or even reach for my revolver on the nightstand. Around 4 a.m., crows began calling, and that finally snapped me out of it. No smells or prints found. I did look, but there was dense foliage outside the wall that was banged on. Now, I can just imagine all of you down in the comments are going to be saying stuff like, man, if I'd have had a .44 caliber cannon strapped to my hip and somebody had been terrorizing my family like that on vacation, well, I'd have gone out guns blazing with one hand and filming my camera with the other and blah, blah, blah. No, you wouldn't. Rob was man enough to tell us the truth on his report. He said he was paralyzed with fear. You know, Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Well, Rob had a plan. His plan was .44 caliber cannon on his hip. You know, that way, if even a grizzly attacked his family 6 slugs later, that grizzly is at least going to be slowed down enough for them to get away. That was Rob's plan. But when sheer terror cripples you with fear, plans go out the window. You know, let me break it down like this. When you're crapping your pants, crippled with fear, you can't also be Billy Bob Badass. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, everybody that says, well, I'd have gone out doing something, you just described everybody that's killed first in every horror movie ever. whereas Rob and his family hid and stayed in the cabin and lived to the end of the movie to get to tell the story. So thank you, Rob, for admitting what you felt there. I'll just quickly add, I had 2 encounters like this years back, both on tributaries of the same river. The first night, my friends and I camping, we were paralyzed with fear. We could do nothing. And even the pack of hunting dogs that was with us, paralyzed with fear, tail between their legs, whimpering, and these things would fight mountain lions. So that's what sheer terror does. The second time it happened, it was a different kind of sheer terror where my friend and I ran for our lives across an icy river, and never in our life ever went back. And this is what led me to becoming Thinker. So those of you who think you would go out and do something, you're admitting that you have never experienced sheer terror. Okay, so welcome to Whoop Vocalizations 101. We are looking at the spectral analysis of what 2 human whoop sounds look like. Have a listen to both. That was Ron Morehead, recorded over 50 years ago up in the Sierra Mountains, Sierra Nevadas. And the second one, that's me, 50-something years later in my studio. And look, 2 entirely different recorders, 2 entirely different men, 50 years apart, and yet our vocalizations look the same. And there's a reason for that, because we're both humans and we manufacture sounds the same way. And for both of us, you see this yellow, orange, and white tube of sound down here on the bottom. The rest of these are just like harmonic reflections of that. This one singular solid tube of sound that starts at one pitch and then starts going up and up and up and up and up until it finally gets to the whoop part. We start down here. Whoop, whoop. That's what human whoops look like. And if I zoom back quickly, these are the only other species on the entire planet that I could find that make whooping type vocalizations. The first is a gibbon. Incredible. And next to that, we've got a hyena. You wouldn't expect them to make a whooping call, but they do. And next to that, we've got a whooping crane. And then after that was, again, Ron Morehead and myself. So look at that. I mean, this is using spectral analysis to kind of peel the curtain back on Mother Nature to see how any species on the planet, whether it's bird or what, if it's going to make a whooping vocalization, it's going to have this familiar orange, yellow, and white tube of sound that varies wildly up and down in pitch. Every single one of these. I mean, you could say that it would be unnatural to hear some species making a whooping type vocalization and it not have this orange, yellow, white tube of meandering sound. So now that you're becoming somewhat of a whoop expert and you know what to look for, this yellow, white, and orange continuous flow, this tube of sound, let me introduce you to these 2 oddball vocalizations down here on the lower left. Now, what's missing? I mean, these 2 couldn't possibly be whoop vocalizations because they're missing the number 1 criteria, the continuous tube of sound. I mean, these things are crunchy clusters of sounds, 2 sounds, one on top, one on the bottom, sandwiched together. So they couldn't possibly be whoops, right? So let's listen to them. Yep, they're whoops that don't match the sonic fingerprint of any known species on the planet, which makes these 2 right here the new gold standard for what we'll be looking for. And the first one, have a listen. That was recorded by Ron Morehead over 50 years ago, way up in the Sierra Nevadas of California. It's part of his Sierra Sounds Bigfoot recordings. Go check that out. It's amazing. And this second one, recorded 50 years later, thousands of miles away in Kentucky by the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization. Go give them a like and a subscribe. Okay, so here we go. It's place your bets time. Is Rob's whoop a known species? Is it a human hoax, or is it the real deal? Now, have a listen. That is a really high-pitched whoop. Now, I have cleaned and enhanced and scrubbed this audio and amplified it all I dare. If I go any further, I run the risk of deteriorating the actual whoop itself. Now, have a listen to the rest. So you've got a child whispering, well, hey, he was there with his family. That's to be expected. And the rest of it sounds like this. You know, it's like mic handling noises. So that's why you guys are going to have to gear up if you want to do this. You need at least prosumer gear, you know, $100 or so will get you there. I've got links down below to a recorder and some different little tripods you can choose from, or a little mic boom stand, just something to keep you from hand holding the mic. And so now, oh, and by the way, clicking on my links will turn Amazon into an unwitting sponsor of the Whoop Project, which I would really appreciate because I invest a lot of time in this. And the only sponsors I have right now are my Thinker Thunker patrons and Thinker Thunker YouTube members. Thank you guys so very much. So now I am going to copy Rob's whoop over and drop it in with the usual suspects. And now I'll drop Rob's whoop over here on the left. Right there we go. And so first, let's just compare Rob's right here to the gibbon. Not only does it not sound alike, but of course, the main thing we're after, it doesn't look anything. It doesn't have the same sonic fingerprint of the gibbon's vocalization. So we can get rid of that. And next, we've got Rob's versus a hyena right here. Nope, doesn't match hyena. Is it a whooping crane? Here, let's hear Rob's again. Does it match up visually with a whooping crane? No, and it doesn't sound like it, so we can get rid of the whooping crane. There are all known species that make whooping vocalizations gone. All that's left are the Sierra and Kentucky whoops on the far left, Rob's whoop in the center, and us two humans over on the far right. So use your eyes. Which does Rob's whoop match? Now, here's what I would look for. Here is my first criteria. Does Rob's vocalization, is it comprised of a woo part like this, like the Kentucky is? And then does it have a second higher pitch part? And by the way, the Sierra whoop is the exact same way. A lower whoop. And if I extend the search or the selection handle up, you can hear both. Listen. That's a mid-range and a higher pitch whoop happening in one larynx, one vocal box at the same time. That's impossible. Or at least I can't find another species on the planet that can sing two parts at the same time. And yes, I've tried human throat singing. First off, that is a low, growling, gravelly sound and not a whoop type sound. So no, it's not human throat singing. So now let's look at Rob's whoop. Does he have two sounds sandwiched together? And if I select the bottom part of Rob's whoop here, all we're really getting is kind of low rumblings matched with the sound from Rob's mic handling and other ambient noise. Now listen, if I start extending the selection up, and hopefully you're listening on earphones. Here we go. See, there you're starting to hear it. So, based on the first criteria, is Rob's whoop comprised of a upper and lower part? And I have to say, no, it fails there. And while I see maybe a suggestion of this lower starting whoop, I can't say I see it. So Rob's whoop has so far failed, but hang over because it ain't done yet. Next criteria. Is Rob's a thin, continuous flowing tube of sound like our human whoops? No, not at all. Rob's is a cluster of sound, just like these, just like our gold standards. So now Rob has passed the second criteria. Look at our human whoops. They start low. Here, let me grab. That's the woo part, and both of us have that. And then our pitches finish up much higher as our vocal cords stretch to the high part of it. Look at Rob's vocalization. Flat as a pancake with no variance, just like the Sierra and the Kentucky whoops. So that is the third and to me, the most important criteria, the fact that it does not vary in pitch, and yet it's a whoop sound. It would have to vary in pitch by just simple acoustics. You have to have like two different notes, a woo and a whoop. And we can't see where Rob's whoop has that any more than we can see where the Sierra or the Kentucky whoops have that. All three are flat as pancakes, and yet they are whoop vocalizations. They shouldn't be whoops, but they are whoops. So based on the fact that Rob's is a cluster of sound and not a tube of sound, and that it does not vary in pitch at all, tells me that Rob, you recorded an authentic whoop, an authentic unknown species whoop that matches up perfectly with the Sierra and the Kentucky whoops. Congratulations. This location will be pinned. It'll be the first pin on our map. And hopefully, if we have more people like Rob step up and record this, who knows what we can learn if we start seeing patterns arise on these encounter locations. And here's maybe an even more important part. When we combine this simple scientific analysis, comparative analysis we've done here, where Rob's whoop passed, when you combine that with the sheer terror that he and his family experienced, then, and plus the location, I mean, up there, that's Sasquatch heaven up in that part of the world. So there is no doubt that Rob and his family were terrorized by an unknown species. Was that species probably forest giants, aka Bigfoot? Yeah, that's where my money would be, but you decide that on your own. All right, everybody, that is all I've got. What a thrill this first encounter submission was for me. Special thanks to Rob again. I really appreciate you, man. Maybe we can do a Zoom call and talk about this sometime. Who knows? Special thanks to my Think a Thunker channel patrons and YouTube members. Thank you guys for your support. You right now are also supporting my research over here. And hey, this is the first science that I'm aware of into the vocalizations of an unknown species. So I think this is an amazing new turn and new direction for forest giant exploration. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Take care.